In the winter of 1994, 11-year-old Nora Field vanished after boarding a substitute school bus during a citywide driver strike in Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. She was never seen again. No bus, no driver, no trace. But 30 years later, deep in the frozen woods, a buried vehicle is uncovered with one skeleton inside and a child's lunchbox still on the seat. This is the story of the wrong bus and what really happened that morning. Before we begin, if you're drawn to cold cases, hidden truths, and stories that leave you haunted, subscribe for more investigative true crime mysteries every day. February 3rd, 2024. Location: Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. During a winter logging operation, workers discover the buried roof of an old yellow school bus in the frozen soil. When the authorities exhume it, they find only one skeleton, an adult male still in a driver's uniform, and a child's red lunchbox marked with masking tape. Nora Field, Room 6B. February 4th, 1994, location: Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. The school district sent the robocall just before sunrise. Due to the ongoing bus driver strike, students in the Pine Hollow Unified School District were to make alternate travel arrangements. Some parents drove their kids. Others relied on carpools or last-minute favors. But in the working-class stretch of town known as Tiller's Grove, where most parents were already on the clock by dawn, kids figured things out on their own. That Friday, 11-year-old Nora Field waited on the corner of Finch Avenue and Alder Street like she always did. Her boots stamped softly in the snow, the cold seeping through her thick socks. She tugged her purple hat tighter over her ears and glanced down the road. The usual bus, number 42, wasn't coming. They'd been warned, but Nora hadn't wanted to bother her mom, who'd pulled a double shift at the factory and barely slept. Her dad wasn't in the picture anymore, and walking the mile to North Briar Elementary meant crossing 2 icy overpasses and an unshoveled footbridge. Then she saw it, a yellow bus with fogged-up windows crawling slowly around the corner. Its turn signal blinked once before fading, like a dying heartbeat. It was not the usual driver. The man behind the wheel wore a dark green jacket, not the school-issued windbreaker. He had a trimmed beard and glasses, and didn't look up as the doors hissed open. Nora hesitated, but when the cold wind snapped at her backpack and the snow began to fall harder, she climbed aboard. Inside, the bus was dimly lit and quiet. Just a few other students sat scattered, kids she didn't recognize, some older, a couple younger. None of them spoke. The heater hummed low and hot, making the air feel thick. She found a seat halfway back, dropped her red lunchbox on her lap, and looked out the fogged window. The bus pulled away. At 7:56 a.m., School Secretary Carol Minnie marked Nora Field absent. No one thought much of it. Back at the house, Nora's mother, Dinah Field, was elbow-deep in conveyor grease at the packaging plant. She wouldn't get a break until after 2 p.m. At 3:20 p.m., when she arrived home and saw Nora's boots still missing from the porch rack, she assumed her daughter had gone to a friend's after school. By 5:30, that assumption cracked. By 6:15, she was dialing every parent she knew. At 7:02 p.m., she called the police. Officer Wyatt Kessler stood in Nora's bedroom that night, scanning the posters on her wall. Lisa Frank dolphins, a calendar with horses, and a handmade map of the school's lunch rotation. Everything was normal. Lived in. No sign of a runaway. Her homework was finished. Her pillow still held the shape of her head. Kessler turned to Dana. "You're sure she left for school this morning?" Dana nodded. "I watched her from the kitchen window. She was wearing her purple hat and snow pants. I remember." "Did she mention a ride?" "She said she'd figure it out. There was a strike. We talked about it the night before. I told her she didn't have to go, but—" Her voice broke. "Nora's never missed a day." Kessler scribbled something into his notebook. "You said you saw her get on a bus?" "I said I saw her waiting for one." But no bus. Dana shook her head slowly. I don't know. I wasn't watching the whole time. I had to get to work. That sliver of time, between 7:40 and 7:50 a.m., would become a black hole in the investigation. By Monday, flyers were up around town. Missing Nora Field. Age 11. Last seen February 4th, 1994. Height, 4 feet 9 inches. Weight, 84 pounds. Brown hair, green eyes, wearing purple knit hat, gray snow pants, black coat with pink lining. Beneath it, if seen, contact Pine Hollow PD. At North Briar Elementary, the official story was that Nora never arrived. Teachers remembered the strike, the substitute buses, and the chaos of that morning. But no one recalled Nora specifically. No one saw her in the hallway. No one remembered her in homeroom. The substitute bus logs were incomplete. Half handwritten, some missing entirely. One log simply listed, Route 12X, 7 students picked up, 0 dropped off. No signatures, no return information, no names. The week dragged on. Then a month. Theories circled like buzzards. She ran away. She was kidnapped on foot. She never got on a bus. She was taken before that. But her lunchbox never turned up. Her boots were never found. Her purple hat, crocheted by her grandmother, was never spotted again. It was as if she'd been plucked from the earth entirely. 30 years later, a steel-toothed excavator clawed through frozen earth off County Road 18. The crew had been hired to clear dead trees and make space for new drainage pipes. No one expected to hear the shuddering clang of metal on metal. At first, they thought it was just a buried trailer, a deer blind, maybe some old farm equipment. But when the dirt peeled away and a rounded yellow frame emerged, one of the younger workers recognized the shape instantly. "I think that's a damn school bus," he said. Sheriff Elena Mendez arrived within the hour. The scene was locked down, soil samples bagged, photographs taken. The bus's back end had been crushed inward, as if something heavy had been dropped on it decades ago. The windows were black with age, some still intact, others shattered. A medical examiner's team worked carefully to preserve the interior. What they found inside would reshape Pine Hollow's oldest mystery. In the driver's seat, a skeleton still in a green jacket, mummified, slumped sideways, hands still on the wheel. On the third row, left-hand side, a red plastic lunchbox with a peeling label, Nora Field, room 6. B still zipped shut. Inside, a bruised apple, a Capri Sun pouch, a folded permission slip for the North Briar Science Fair, dated February 7th, 1994. But no child, no remains, no footprints in or out, no blood, no clothing, just the lunchbox, waiting. February 5th, 2024, location, Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. The bus had no license plates. The VIN had been filed down and partially torched, leaving behind only warped steel and the faint outline of a serial sequence that led nowhere. Sheriff Elena Mendez stood beside the vehicle's open side door, one gloved hand on her radio, the other clutching her scarf against the wind. It was 6 degrees and falling. The heat from the crime scene lights shimmered like ghosts against the snow-packed trees. Inside the bus, the corpse in the driver's seat was now tagged and bagged. The remains had been carefully lifted by the medical examiner's team and transported to the State Forensic Lab in Madison. But the lunchbox, the red one, remained behind, sealed inside an evidence bag and held with reverence. Elena studied it for a long time before speaking. "Get me everything we have on the original disappearance," she said into the radio. "I want the full Nora Field file, and find out who the hell was supposed to be driving substitute Route 12X that day." Pine Hollow Police Department. Evidence Room. The case file was labeled number 94-0212, Field, Nora. It had sat untouched in cold storage for 28 years. Detective Emery Pratt laid it out on the evidence table like an old photograph album, thick with statements, faded Polaroids, and typewritten reports. He paged through the original witness list, looking for anything that might point to the man behind the wheel of that buried bus. There was a section from February 1994 titled, "Drivers Cross-Checked with Substitute Logs, February 3rd to 6th. Half the names had been underlined. All were verified employees, but one was blank. Route 12 ex-driver. Time out, 7:43 a.m. Student 7, estimated notes. Did not return to depot. Driver not identified. Bus not signed out officially. Emery ran his fingers along the faded carbon paper. Jesus, he muttered. He just took it. Back then, the strike had made everything chaotic. Dozens of parents offering rides, a handful of substitute drivers brought in from outside counties. No background checks, no digital logs, just hasty signatures and manual clipboards. Someone had taken advantage of the confusion and stolen a bus. February 6th, 2024. Madison State Forensics Lab. Dr. Marianne Coulter, a forensic anthropologist with 31 years of experience, pulled off her magnifier headset and scribbled a note. Age, approximately 50 to 60. Sex, male stature, 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 11 inches. Anatomy consistent with Caucasian male. Time of death. Likely winter 1994. Within 1 week of disappearance. Cause of death, undetermined. Suspected head trauma. Clothing, green jacket, khakis, cracked leather gloves. No wallet. No ID. Only unique item. Keyring with a single brass locker key marked J26. Emery stared at the photograph of the key. What's J26? Could be anything, doctor. Coulter replied. Locker, storage unit, apartment mailbox, but it's not school issued, and it doesn't match any locker systems from the Pine Hollow district. Maybe he wasn't from Pine Hollow. They ran the dead man's dental records against state databases. Nothing. No matches in national missing persons. No fingerprint record. The bus driver, it seemed, had been a ghost. That same day, local news picked up the story. Breaking. Bus found in woods linked to 1994 missing child case. Headlines spread across Wisconsin. Donna Field watched from her one-bedroom apartment on the west side of town, hands clenched so tightly around a coffee mug that her knuckles ached. She hadn't spoken publicly about Nora in over a decade. She'd stopped answering questions long ago. Grief had its own erosion process, and hers had carved her into a kind of permanent shadow. But seeing the lunchbox on screen again, her handwriting on the tape, unraveled something inside her. She picked up the phone and called the police. I'm ready to talk, she said. Interview room B, Pine Hollow PD. Detective Pratt slid the photo of the bus across the table. Is this the lunchbox Nora took to school? Dana nodded slowly. I packed it the night before. Peanut butter and banana sandwich. She said jelly made the bread slimy. He flipped to another image. Do you recognize this man? She stared at the corpse photo. Cropped, respectful, but unmistakably dead. No, she whispered. That's not any driver we knew. It's not Mr. Hellberg. He drove Route 42. He wore a blue jacket with a badge. And what would Nora have done if a stranger pulled up in an unfamiliar bus? She was trusting, Dana said quietly. She would have believed he was just helping, especially if he said he was covering the route. She wouldn't have questioned it. Number she would have gotten on. She didn't like making people feel bad. New lead, locker key. J26. 3 days later, the key was matched to a now-defunct storage unit facility just outside of Janesville, Wisconsin, 80 miles from Pine Hollow. The building had been condemned after flooding in 2003. Unit J26 was listed under a fake name, Donnie Ray Schultz, paid in cash. The box had been untouched since 1995. With a crowbar and a warrant, Detective Pratt and Sheriff Mendez cracked the door open. Inside, a deteriorated twin mattress, stacks of VHS tapes in milk crates, a child's coat, gray with pink lining. A newspaper clipping. Missing girl, Nora Field still unfound after 2 months. And a photo. Nora Field, 11, standing in front of the bus, smiling slightly, her lunchbox dangling at her side. Behind her, the man, glasses, beard, green jacket. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. The caption on the back read, in black marker, Day 1. She's perfect. February 7th, 2024. Location, Janesville, Wisconsin. The inside of the storage unit smelled like old wood, mildew, and time itself. Sheriff Elena Mendez stood just outside the rusted threshold, her breath visible in the morning cold. Detective Emery Pratt crouched near a stack of milk crates, each one labeled in black marker. Volume 1 to 20, Volume 21 to 40. Backups. He didn't open them yet. Not without gloves, not without backup. But the photograph in his hand already said too much. It was printed on glossy paper, the kind you'd get at a corner photo lab in the 90s. Nora Field stood in front of the yellow bus, her smile hesitant, as if unsure whether she was posing or being caught off guard. The most chilling detail wasn't the man beside her. It was the background. Thick evergreens, an unpaved clearing, no buildings, no street signs. A place out of bounds, a place meant not to be found. By 10:30 a.m., CSU had arrived. The unit's contents were photographed, cataloged, and loaded into evidence vans. The mattress was removed last, stiff and rotted. Beneath it, they found a flashlight with dead batteries, a spiral-bound notebook titled Sleep Schedule, and a small cracked plastic box containing 4 used cassette tapes, each labeled with a single initial and a number, N.1, N.2, N.3, N.4. They were transferred to a forensic AV lab in Madison for careful recovery. None were to be played until cleared by the DA and trauma support teams. There was too much risk, legally, emotionally, psychologically, but everyone already suspected what was on them. That evening, Detective Pratt and Sheriff Mendez returned to Pine Hollow to brief Nora's mother. Dana Field sat in the same apartment, older now, the walls lined with framed nature prints and a few dusty photos of a life long interrupted. She hadn't changed much in 20 years, still stoic, still watchful, but the light in her had thinned. They didn't show her the tapes, but they showed her the notebook. Sleep schedule. Week 1. Nora wakes 6:02 a.m., lights off 9 p.m., cereal, apple juice, cold, not warm. No talking after 8 p.m., brush teeth, supervised, movie time. Reward behavior, do not discuss parents. If questions persist, increase. Phase 2 audio. Dana's hands trembled as she flipped through it. The entries were clinical, dispassionate, like a zookeeper tracking an animal's routine. "Is this real?" she asked, voice cracking. "Is this what he did to her?" Emery's answer was quiet. "We believe he took her to a remote location. This notebook confirms prolonged captivity. We just don't know for how long." She blinked hard, staring down at the page. How long was she alive? We don't know yet. Later that night, they played one of the tapes in a controlled environment, monitored by trauma experts. Tape number 1 opened with static. Then, "Okay, sweetheart, say your name for me." A pause. "Nora Field." Louder. "Nora Field. Good girl. Now say it the way I taught you." "Nora Schultz." Then came silence. Shuffling. A toy piano in the background. "Remember what we said about Daddy? What does Daddy say?" "Daddy says the world outside is broken. And I'm safe here." The man had trained her, conditioned her. Over time, they'd find dozens more tapes, audio and video, documenting a pattern of grooming and control that spanned months, possibly years, and yet no remains, no body, just the memory of her voice. Confused, obedient, alive. February 8th, 2024. Sheriff Mendez held a press conference. "We have officially reclassified the 1994 disappearance of Nora Field as a case of abduction and long-term captivity. We believe the perpetrator assumed the identity of a bus driver during the 1994 school strike and used that access to lure children. The only known victim at this time is Nora. The man found in the buried bus has not yet been positively identified. Evidence recovered from a storage facility indicates he kept Nora alive for a significant period of time." A reporter raised a hand. "Is Nora still alive?" "We don't know," Mendez said. "We hope so." February 9, 2024, State Archives Emory Pratt followed a paper trail through school transportation records, archived microfilm, and long-forgotten civil complaints. Eventually, he found it. A letter dated January 1994 from the district's hiring office. Subject: substitute driver applicants, strike contingency. List 1 name stood out, scrawled in pen at the bottom, not typed like the rest. Donald R. Schultz. Address on file, phone, NA, cleared. Checkbox left blank. Emery stared at the name. Donnie Ray Schultz. The alias used to rent the storage unit. He cross-referenced the name with DMV records. No license, no registered vehicle, no state ID. It wasn't just an alias. It was fabricated from the start. But the real shock came when they compared the photograph found in the storage unit with an unsolved case from 1989. Another missing child in Illinois, 5 years prior. In that case, a man matching the same physical description had been seen in the area, driving a school bus that wasn't supposed to be there. That child was never found. So who was Donnie Ray Schultz? Why did he die inside the buried bus? And most terrifying of all, what if Nora wasn't his only victim? February 11, 2024. Location: Monroe County, Wisconsin. The house didn't exist on any tax records. It sat 15 miles west of Pine Hollow, off a narrow gravel road that dead-ended in the woods. Aerial imagery showed nothing until 1995. Even then, the roof was barely visible, tucked beneath pine canopy, camouflaged by design. But a tip came in from an unlikely source, a retired social worker named Margot Lentz, now living in assisted care. "I remember him," she said over the phone, her voice raspy with age. Said he was homeschooling a niece. Came into the county office twice, wouldn't fill out paperwork. Gave me a bad feeling. Said his name was Don. Donnie something, had these dark glasses. That little girl never spoke. When investigators asked why she never reported it, Margot said flatly, "No one believed me then. Maybe they will now." Detective Emory Pratt and Sheriff Elena Mendez arrived at the property by noon. There was no mailbox, no driveway, just a rusting cattle gate and tire tracks long since softened by years of fallen pine needles. A posted "no trespassing" sign dangled from a nail, cracked in half by weather and time. The house, once white, was streaked with mildew. The shutters hung crooked. One of the front steps had collapsed inward like a broken rib. The door was locked, but the porch window had already been cracked, likely years ago. Inside, the air was stale and chemical thick. Pratt slipped on gloves. Mendez drew her flashlight. They stepped inside. The living room was a time capsule from 1994. A small TV sat on a wooden cart, its VCR tray jammed open, dust thick enough to write in. Cans of Chef Boyardee lined a shelf. Old newspapers stacked beside a recliner showed headlines from the week Nora went missing. School district strike continues into second week. Mother files missing child report. Everything was intact, untouched, as if the man who lived there had expected to return. In the corner, a space heater was positioned beside a rotting mattress, too small for an adult. Crayon drawings were taped to the wall above it. One showed a yellow bus with big windows and a smiling stick figure holding a lunchbox. Above it, the words, "Daddy takes me to the trees." In the back bedroom, they found what they were looking for. A locked door. No knob, no handle. just a hole where the hardware used to be. The wood around it was newer than the rest of the frame. Reinforced, maybe. Nailed shut. Mendez called in a CSU crew and waited. When the door was finally pried open, they found a sealed room. Pink walls, a collapsed twin bed, shelves with long-expired food, children's DVDs and plastic toys, a bucket with an old lid, a single ceiling light broken. Everything was coated in dust, but beneath it all, evidence of occupation. Tiny handprints on the walls, etchings in the baseboard. One read, "I miss outside." Another said, "Day 434. She was here," Mendez whispered. It wasn't just a holding space. It was a cell. And someone, presumably Nora, had kept track of the days. In a rusted metal bin beside the shelf, CSU recovered more tapes, this time labeled in pen. Project Blossom, Phase 1. End Session 77. Behavior Mod Set 3. Pratt flipped through a black binder found beneath the bin. Inside were typed pages held in plastic sleeves. Each was part of a programmatic structure. Project Blossom, Developmental Conditioning Timeline. Age Threshold, 6 to 12. Environmental Control, Enforced Isolation, Social Redirection, Substitute Parental Bonding, Reinforcement Protocols, Praise, Touch, Food. Audio Modules. Phase 2, The Outside is Broken. Phase 3, Special Girl Special Role. Objective, Develop total dependency and emotional imprinting on the caretaker. Mendez looked up. This wasn't just about Nora. He was testing something. Or rehearsing it, Pratt added grimly. Back in Pine Hollow, Dana Field's apartment. Dana clutched the printed report in her lap. The words blurred in her vision. Project Blossom, Developmental, Phase 3, Parental Bonding. None of it made sense, and yet all of it explained what she had feared all along, that her daughter's disappearance had not been random, not impulsive. It had been orchestrated, a method, a system. Her daughter had been a case study in psychological captivity. February 12, 2024, State Forensics Lab, Madison. The girl in the tapes was unmistakably Nora. Her hair grew longer between videos. Her tone changed. Her voice lost the childish lilt over time. "Can we go outside today?" "No, sweetheart. Outside is sick. We're safe here." "But I miss Mommy. I'm your daddy now. Say it." "You're my daddy." The final video recovered from the house had no label. It showed Nora in a winter coat, standing just outside the pink room. She looked older, maybe 13 or 14. Her eyes were hollow. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "If someone finds this, my name is Nora Field. I think I've been here for a long time. I don't know what year it is. I used to live on Finch Avenue. I miss my mom. I think Daddy's sick. He sleeps all the time. I'm going to try to get out." She leaned toward the camera, then whispered, "If this is the last one, I'm sorry." Then the screen went black. There were no other tapes. No further evidence of her escape. No trail. Just that haunting final message. But for the first time in 30 years, the case had momentum. And for the first time, law enforcement believed something they hadn't dared admit before. Nora might still be alive. February 13th, 2024. Location, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. The footage was grainy, black and white, and nearly overlooked. A gas station attendant named Joel Renshaw was reviewing archived security clips after a routine burglary when something in a 2012 folder caught his eye. A girl's face. He couldn't explain it at first. It wasn't suspicious, just unsettling. The way she glanced toward the ceiling camera, the way her body stayed unnaturally still, and the man beside her, older, bearded, hand firm on her shoulder, kept whispering into her ear while she never spoke. Renshaw paused the video. There was something wrong about it. She looked young, but her eyes didn't match. Too quiet, too hollow. He clicked the timestamp, May 19th, 2012, 3:47 p.m. Then he called the sheriff's office. February 13th, 2024, 4:02 p.m. Detective Emery Pratt watched the clip in silence. The gas station was just off Highway 26 in Jefferson County, roughly 90 miles from Pine Hollow. The footage showed a man, late 50s, glasses, short beard, guiding a girl, roughly 15 or 16, into the shop. He purchased motor oil, 2 water bottles, and a pack of batteries. The girl stood behind him, stiff. Her coat looked borrowed, oversized. Her hair was long, matted, parted down the middle. Her face was partially visible. Joel paused it. "That's the frame that made me call. She looked right at the lens. You see it?" Mendez leaned forward. "Zoom in." He did. Slowly, carefully. The girl's eyes locked with the camera. One iris slightly darker than the other. A detail from the original missing person report. Emery whispered, "That's Nora." They compared the footage to the final video recording found at the farmhouse. Eyebrow arch, nose shape, scarring on the left cheek from a childhood bike crash, noted in her pediatric file. It was her. Nora had been alive in 2012. The man with her wasn't Donnie Ray Schultz. He was too young. Smoother skin. Different gait. Taller. Sheriff Mendez froze the screen. "If that's not Donnie, who the hell is that?" February 14th, 2024. FBI Field Office, Milwaukee. With state lines potentially involved, the FBI joined the case. Special Agent Lucas Dyer, specializing in child trafficking and long-term abduction profiles, was assigned to consult. He studied the footage, the project notes from the Blossom binder, and the full timeline of Nora Field's disappearance. "This isn't random," he said. "This man, whoever he is, was part of the infrastructure. Not just a buyer, a handler." He drew 2 circles on the whiteboard. Circle A, Donnie Ray Schultz, original abductor, 1994, Yalon B. Unidentified male, seen with Nora, 2012. Then he connected them with a question mark. Project Blossom wasn't the work of one man. It was an operation. February 15th, 2024. Backtracking the video. The clerk who was working the day the tape was made, 12 years ago, was tracked down. Her name was Leanne Dunley, now 34, living in Des Moines. She remembered them. He was quiet, protective, but not fatherly, like he was holding a leash, not a hand. I asked if the girl was okay. He smiled and said she didn't talk much. Leanne remembered one more thing. She left behind a piece of paper in a cardboard box in her basement, filed with old notebooks and receipts. Leanne found it, a receipt left on the counter. On the back, scrawled in pencil, "If you read this, my name is Nora Field. Help me, please." The handwriting matched samples from Nora's elementary school, but the message had been missed, misplaced, buried for over a decade, and it proved something else. She was still trying to escape. February 16th, 2024. Criminal pattern begins to emerge. FBI analysts pulled national reports of missing or silent teenage girls seen in the company of older men between 2000 and 2015. A pattern emerged. Remote check-ins, generic motel names, same brand of prepaid gas cards, multiple girls, same behavioral profile, silent, expressionless, compliant. In 3 separate cases, the man was described as glasses, clean-shaven or short beard, polite, always paid in cash. He never used his real name. Alias confirmed, Kevin Willis. Driver's license in that name was fake, but it matched the man in the gas station video. February 17th, 2024. A van registered and his name is found. At an impound lot in Kenosha County, a gray 1998 Dodge Ram van had been towed after sitting abandoned in a Walmart lot for 3 years. Inside were 16 empty water bottles, a mattress pad, a broken GPS device, and in the glove compartment, an old Polaroid photo. The girl in the photo was not Nora. She was someone else. Younger, different hair, dressed similarly, and on the back, written in shaky print, "Wendy, 2006. Sheriff Mendez stared at the photo. "There's more of them." Pratt nodded. "He's not just transporting them, he's replacing them." February 18th, 2024. Nora's mother. They didn't show Dana the footage, not the full thing, but they showed her the still of the girl staring into the camera. She stared for a long time. "That's her," she said quietly. "That's my daughter. Her eyes are the same." She began to cry, not like a woman in grief, but like someone who had been drowning and just surfaced. She's alive. She was alive. And then came the harder question, where is she now? February 19th, 2024. Location, FBI HQ, Milwaukee, then various states. The wall in the FBI operations room had become a map of ghosts. Red yarn stretched between cities. Pinpoints were clustered around Midwest truck stops, bus terminals, and remote gas stations. Faces, blurred, pixelated young, lined the top of the board like mugshots of the missing. Special Agent Lucas Dyer stood with a marker in his hand, reviewing the latest additions. They now had 7 girls, 7 who fit the pattern. Each had been spotted once, just once, brief, grainy footage, store receipts, witness descriptions, always accompanied by a man resembling the one now identified as Kevin Willis, the alias used in the 2012 footage with Nora Field. Each girl had similar traits: aged 11 to 16, compliant behavior, visibly coached silence, minimal interaction with surroundings matched only by a single sighting before disappearing entirely. They weren't just missing. They were being moved. And one, Nora, was the key to understanding all of them. Victim profile. Number 1. Wendy, 2006, Cincinnati, Ohio. Last seen at a rest stop off I-74. Witness reported seeing a quiet girl eating from a Ziploc bag while a man pumped gas. Van license plate was smudged with mud. Security footage later retrieved showed the girl staring at the window of a vending machine for almost 4 straight minutes. No match was made at the time. Victim profile number 2. Bree, 2009, Terre Haute, Indiana. Appeared in a pawn shop surveillance tape with Willis. She attempted to write something on the glass countertop using her finger, letters that looked like BRI, before he ushered her away. Her face was recently identified through facial morphing as a likely match for Brianna Levington, missing from Kentucky since 2007. Victim profile number 3. Haley, 2010, Joplin, M.O. Seen on a motel check-in form signed by Willis under the name Kevin Nash. Clerk remembered her because she didn't blink for an unnatural amount of time and wouldn't speak unless prompted. Later that night, the room was vacated, and a child's necklace was left behind under the bed. The other 4 names were still unknown, but one thing tied them together: a behavioral script. Dr. Monica Kerr, a trauma psychologist brought onto the task force, studied the footage and notes from Project Blossom. Her findings were chilling. These girls display signs of rehearsed obedience, memory fogging, and language minimization. Classic markers of long-term isolation combined with reward-punishment programming. This was not incidental grooming. It was systemic reprogramming. She paused the footage of Nora's last known message, the one recorded in the pink room beneath the farmhouse. "If this is the last one, I'm sorry." Dr. Kerr looked to the team. She wasn't just documenting her life. She was following instructions. February 20th, 2024. Evidence update in the recovered materials from the Monroe County farmhouse. CSU uncovered a hand-drawn behavioral chart on laminated paper. Level system? Princess Room, Level 1, Quiet Time, Level 2, TV plus Storybook, Level 3, Outside Walk, if safe, Level 4, Special Reward, Level 5, Camera Time with Daddy. Each level required 3 gold stars. Each star had to be earned. Beneath the chart, in a child's handwriting, I want Level 5 today. I will do good. Special Agent Dyer stared at the evidence table. This wasn't just about captivity, it was conditioning for performance. February 21st, 2024. Search for Willis intensifies. The alias Kevin Willis had been used for motel registrations in 5 states, a library card issued in Topeka, KS, no books ever checked out, a storage locker rented in Des Moines, Iowa, found empty in 2019. The real Kevin Willis had died in 1992 in a boating accident in Arkansas. The identity was stolen. Every clue led to a dead end, except for one. A pawn shop in rural Iowa still had surveillance tapes from 2011. February 22nd, 2024. Breakthrough. The footage was faint but usable. It showed Willis pawning a digital camcorder. On the counter beside it was a case labeled Blossom 7, 2011, some final run. When agents retrieved the pawned camcorder, the case was empty. But underneath the foam padding tucked between the seams of the case was a torn corner of a map, circled in red ink, Stillwater, Minnesota, and scrawled beneath it, Drop Site B. February 23rd, 2024. Mobilization begins. Special teams were dispatched to Stillwater. Satellite images revealed an abandoned grain storage facility, closed since 1999, located 2 miles from the main road, surrounded by tree lines and disused train tracks. No listed ownership, no utility use, no paper trail. But for investigators, it looked exactly like the kind of place you wouldn't find unless you were meant to. And somewhere, possibly in those walls, Nora Field might still be alive. February 24th, 2024. Location, Stillwater, Minnesota. The grain silos rose from the frost-bitten earth like forgotten sentinels, tall and rust-streaked, flanked by a corrugated warehouse and an access road barely wide enough for 2 trucks to pass. The property was officially listed as abandoned agricultural storage, closed in 1999 after a pesticide spill. But satellite imagery showed something odd. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel, patterns too neat to be incidental. Someone had been coming and going, quietly. Special Agent Lucas Dyer stood beside the lead tactical van, binoculars in hand, eyes on the building's south entrance. Wind tugged at his coat. The air reeked faintly of ammonia and rot. Behind him, FBI units waited in silence, armed and armored. A cold rescue was the worst kind. Risk of injury, contamination, environmental collapse. But they couldn't wait any longer. Inside that compound might be Nora Field, or what was left of her. 9:02 a.m. Entry initiated. The front door was chained, but not locked with a key. Just a rusted padlock hanging loose. It was a warning, not a barrier. 3 agents breached the warehouse first, sweeping right. Dyer followed left. Dust coated everything. Rodent droppings peppered the floor. Machinery sat in rusted heaps. Hulks of conveyors and grain augers. Old bags of soybean meal lay burst in corners like decaying lungs. But then they reached the interior office. A plywood wall divided it in 2. One side was open. The other was sealed with a sheet of corrugated metal, bolted from the inside. And near the base, a drawer-sized cutout like a feed hatch. 9:17 a.m. Door breach agents pried back the metal. The hinges groaned but gave way. Inside, a cot with pink bedding, child-sized a portable DVD player, 3 empty water jugs, a camping toilet, A single bare light bulb hanging from wire, and against the far wall, a girl. She sat curled up, knees to chest, wearing a fleece pajama top with unicorns on it and an oversized hoodie. Her hair was tangled past her shoulders, her limbs thin, her skin pale but intact. At the sound of boots on concrete, she squinted into the light. "Are you the test?" she whispered. "My name is Agent Lucas Dyer," he said gently. "You're safe now." She didn't resist, didn't scream. She followed commands without hesitation, eyes flicking between officers like she was calculating how to pass an invisible exam. "Do you know your name?" one asked. She hesitated, then quietly, "Nora, your full name." A pause, then whispered, "Nora Field." 9:43 a.m. EMS evaluation. Begins outside, under a warming tent. Nora sat on a folding chair wrapped in heated blankets. A female medic crouched in front of her, checking vitals, asking soft questions. No visible injuries, signs of mild dehydration, malnourishment, mild hypothermia. No signs of restraint, just psychological damage. Deep, layered. She spoke in fragments. "Daddy said I was his star. We were rehearsing. Level 5 was the last test. If I got it right, I'd get to see the other girls." "Other girls?" the agent repeated. Nora nodded. "They were in the videos. He said they passed already." The notebook recovered from the Stillwater site would later confirm. New star, Nora, age 17, clean footage. Final shoot before trade-up. Wendy model expired, disposed 2013. Brianna failed compliance test, reassigned. One line chilled them all. Replacement found, ETA 1 week, girl from Arkansas Fairgrounds. Whoever Nora had just replaced, whoever was being trained to take her place, was out there now. And the man known as Kevin Willis was nowhere to be found. That night, Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. Dana Field stood on her front porch, fingers trembling against her mouth, as an unmarked SUV rolled up the drive. The back door opened. The girl stepped out, tentative, smaller than she looked in the news photos, older in the eyes. "Mom?" she asked. Dana broke. She ran barefoot through the snow. They met halfway, collapsing into each other, sobbing, neither speaking a word. For the first time in 30 years, Dana held her daughter again. For the first time since the strike morning of 1994, Nora Field was home. February 25th to 28th, 2024. Location, Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. Nora Field hadn't slept in a real bed for almost 3,000 nights. The mattress at the trauma recovery clinic was firm and sterile, but it didn't sag or smell like mildew. There were no hidden cameras, no bolted hatch in the door, no behavior chart tacked above her pillow. And still, for the first 3 nights, she didn't close her eyes for more than 10 minutes at a time. When the staff turned off the lights, she flinched. When someone opened a door without knocking, she startled. When she saw her own reflection in the bathroom mirror for the first time, she whispered, "She looks like me." But older. February 25th. Initial evaluation. Dr. Monica Kerr sat across from her in a quiet, windowed room. The walls were pale green, software intentional. Nora wore a zip-up hoodie 3 sizes too big and gripped a stress ball shaped like a cat. "Do you remember your mother?" "Yes." "What do you remember about the day you disappeared?" Nora looked down. "I was waiting for the bus. The regular one wasn't coming. He said he was filling in, that there'd been a mix-up. He opened the door and said, 'North Briar, room 6B. That was my room. I thought he worked for the school." Her voice cracked like paper. "He gave me fruit snacks." February 26th. Media storm. By now, the country knew her name again. Nora Field found alive after 30 years. Daughter missing since 1994. Reunited with mother. inside the mind of the girl who got on the wrong bus. News vans lined the snowy roads near Pine Hollow. Every outlet wanted the first quote, the first photo, the exclusive with the girl who survived the princess room. But the FBI held the perimeter tight. Nora had survived enough. February 27th. Mother and daughter, together again. Dana Field was allowed to visit for a supervised hour. She brought photos, a stuffed cat named Mossy from Nora's old bedroom, and a strawberry yogurt drink Nora used to love. They sat at a plastic table, not knowing how to begin. Dana tried first. "You like these," she said, nudging the drink across the table. Nora nodded. "He used to bring those, sometimes." He, not the first man, the second one, with glasses, the one who made the tapes. She didn't say his name. She said it like you'd say a curse. The moment broke when Dana pulled out the photo of Nora's old bedroom. "I left it the same for years, just in case." Nora stared at the image for a long time. "The pink curtains," she whispered. "They're still there." He made the fake room look like that. Same wall color, same blanket. But not the light. He never got the light right. It was always too yellow. Tears welled up in Dana's eyes. "You remembered." Nora said nothing, but she reached across the table and took her mother's hand. February 28th. Forensic interview detective Emery Pratt and Sheriff Elena Mendez sat in on the recorded session with FBI child interview specialists. "Do you remember what he called the place where he kept you?" Nora nodded. "The princess room." "Did he ever mention why?" "He said it was made just for me. Because I was special. Because I passed the test." "What test?" "I didn't cry the first night." "Were there other girls?" Nora's jaw clenched. "Yes, but they didn't stay long." "What happened to them?" "They failed." "Failed how?" Silence. Then, "They talked too much." Or they asked about outside. He said they weren't ready. She named 3 names. Wendy Bree Haley. They were just like her. Except they never made it home. That night, off record. As the sun set behind a frozen lake, Dana watched Nora draw in a sketch pad the clinic had given her. She was sketching the bus. The wrong one, from memory. "He said I got on because I was obedient," she muttered. "He said that made me a good candidate." Dana crouched beside her. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart." "But I didn't scream." "You were 11. I got on the wrong bus." "No," Dana said gently, pulling her close. "He drove the wrong bus. You just wanted to go to school." Outside the recovery center, armed officers stood under the floodlights, scanning the tree line. Because somewhere out there, the man known as Kevin Willis was still free, still watching, and possibly still collecting. February 29th, 2024. Location, Des Moines, Iowa. Pine Hollow, Wisconsin. It started with a mislabeled evidence box in Des Moines. In the basement of a municipal records facility, a junior archivist sorting outdated cold case materials stumbled upon a battered cardboard box labeled Unclaimed Property, 2016. Inside, a rusted tin lunchbox, 2 VHS-C tapes in unmarked plastic sleeves, a receipt from a storage facility, paid in cash under the name Kevin Willis. And one photograph. A young girl standing beside an open van, smiling awkwardly, flanked by a man with glasses and a thick beard. She wasn't Nora. She looked about 13. Dark hair, pale eyes. In the background, open plains and a billboard advertising the Des Moines County Fair, July 2011. The archivist called the state police. March 1st, 2024, FBI Field Office, Madison. The 2 tapes were carefully digitized. The first was labeled after the fact by the analysts. Unknown subject, Blossom 9, Tape A. It showed the girl from the photograph sitting in a sparse room, lit only by a desk lamp. She wore the same yellow hoodie from the picture, and her voice was hushed. "My name is Lila. I live in the van now. Daddy says I'm being reshaped. He said my real family didn't want me, but I know that's not true." She looked off camera. "If someone finds this, please tell them I didn't want to leave." The second tape was worse. It showed her performing obedience drills, reciting affirmations, answering prompts, using coded phrases like, "I am safe, the world is sick, I'm not broken, I belong here." At the end, the man's voice, Kevin Willis, spoke from behind the camera. "You're almost ready, just like Nora was." Confirmation. This was another girl, another victim, and she had been alive at least 5 years after Nora disappeared from the Stillwater silo. There was no record of any missing girl named Lila matching that photo in 2011. March 2nd, 2024. Nora's interview room. They showed Nora the digitized stills from the tapes, carefully, gently. When she saw the girl's face, she stopped breathing for a full 5 seconds. "That's Lila," she whispered. "She was in the room across from mine, in Missouri, I think. We never talked directly. He said we'd contaminate each other's progress." "What happened to her?" Nora shook her head. "One day she was just gone." "Did he say why?" "He said she got curious." The phrase made Mendez's stomach turn. Curious, it meant disobedient. It meant disposable. March 3rd, 2024. Composite profile update. Kevin Willis's behavioral profile was now more than a theory. It was a systematic, modular program, an evolving architecture of captivity. Isolate, reprogram, record, discard, or trade when emotional compliance fails. The tapes weren't trophies. They were products. Some labeled cleanly, others shoved into abandoned lockers or storage units. Those that didn't meet the final stage, like Lila's, were quietly left behind. March 4th, 2024. Nora's drawing room. She was sketching again. The same things. The inside of the bus. The window in the silo. A girl with dark hair behind a vent grate, peeking out. Dana asked softly, "Who's that?" "That's Lila. You remember what she looked like?" "Yes, I used to draw her after lights out so I wouldn't forget." A pause. "She liked humming. He hated humming." Later, Nora gave one of the sketches to Dr. Kerr. On the back, she had written, "I wasn't the first. I wasn't the last." March 5th, 2024. FBI Task Force expansion. With the Des Moines tapes authenticated and linked to Kevin Willis, the Bureau issued a national directive. Active serial predator targeting pre-adolescent and adolescent girls under the framework of fabricated educational captivity. Suspect operational from the 1990s through at least 2017. Current status unknown. Believed to have trafficked at least 7 confirmed victims across state lines. A full database was opened. All girls with partial names, sightings matching behavioral conditioning patterns, abandoned footage evidence. Any mention of Princess Room, Level 5, or Project Blossom. They were no longer chasing a man. They were chasing an invisible institution. March the 6th, 2024. A new name surfaces from Colorado. An anonymous tip arrived. A woman cleaning out her father's attic found VHS tapes with unlabeled white spines and a black notebook. One tape contained the words, "Princess Room, Trial Phase, Lisa, 1995. In the background of the tape, a girl crying, maybe 8 years old. Hair pulled back, dressed in a pink t-shirt. The man beside her was younger, clean-shaven, no beard yet. It was Kevin. Younger than when he took Nora, older than the Missouri tape. The pattern stretched further back than anyone realized. Lisa, 1995, Nora, 1994, Lila, 2011, Wendy, BRE, Haley, unknown ranges unidentified, ongoing. Each name, a bookmark. Each tape, a sealed page in a playbook of control. They hadn't found all the tapes. They hadn't found all the names. But now they knew what they were looking for. And Nora was finally speaking freely. March 7th to 10th, 2024 location, Joliet, Illinois/FBI HQ, Milwaukee. The sting began with an email, encrypted, routed through an overseas server. The subject line read, "Interested in educational media. Private auction, March 10th, warehouse only." An undercover agent embedded in an online trafficking forum flagged it instantly. The language matched phrases used in coded circles: education, room themes, compliance demonstrations. These weren't lectures, they were tapes. And the location: a rented commercial warehouse in Joliet, Illinois, 2 hours south of Pine Hollow. The invitation promised anonymity, private viewing rooms, and rare Blossom-lined cassettes available to highest-tier donors. Blossom. The word again. The same twisted name from the notebooks, from the videos, from the room Nora had nearly died in. This wasn't just one man. It was a distribution network. March 8th, 2024. Warehouse surveillance begins. The building looked like any other. Gray concrete, shuttered bay doors. No exterior signage. Inside, it had been renovated. A narrow front room with security cameras and a check-in desk. Private booths with small monitors, headphones, and card readers, rows of locked filing cabinets, and a rear area with 2 loading docks, perfect for moving product in and out unseen. The FBI task force planted listening devices and camera feeds over 48 hours. They captured 5 men entering with no identification code words exchanged. Tier 2 clearance. I'm interested in solo Blossom sets. Any 2010s left? One phrase that froze the room during playback. Got anything like the Nora girl? March 9th, 2024. Identification confirmed. Facial recognition flagged 2 of the attendees. Alan Robichaud, registered teacher, fired for inappropriate conduct in 2006. Gerald Fessler, former IT technician at a private charter school. Both had sealed records linked to prior child abuse investigations. Neither had been convicted. They had returned. Confident, comfortable, because no one had ever stopped them. March 10th, 2024. Buy-in night, 9:03 p.m. Disguised as a buyer, an FBI agent entered the warehouse. He was escorted to a booth and offered a digital menu. Level 1, classroom, early obedience routines. Level 2, princess series, dress, theme rooms, chore sequences. Level 3, reward footage, emotional imprint bonding, archival, legacy, Nora, Wendy, Bree, Lisa. The names were right there, marketed, sold, categorized like products. The agent selected archival and was shown a grainy video preview. It was Nora, age 12, in the pink room, sitting cross-legged, reciting phrases. "My name is Nora. Daddy said I'm ready now." The agent gave the signal. 32 agents moved in within minutes. 9:19 p.m. Warehouse raid. Screams echoed as buyers tried to flee. Dozens of hard drives were seized, filing cabinets ripped open. A back closet held a stack of DVD-Rs labeled with dates and cryptic symbols. 6B, final. WND, scratch copy. B3, Liza. Lila, transfer session. Nora, compliance V.3. Watch this one. That last one had a red sticker. When agents reviewed it later, it was labeled Top Donor Cut. 10:41 p.m. Arrests. Made 11 men were taken into custody. 4 had previous charges that had been dropped. 1 was a licensed foster parent. 2 had been active in online education communities. 1 was a retired school administrator. They had passed background checks. They had organized parent-teacher conferences. They had been hiding in plain sight. March 11th, 2024. Nora's reaction. They didn't show her the footage, but they told her what was found, what had been done with the tapes. She didn't speak for a long time. Then slowly she said, He told me, if I did it right, they'd all want me. And they did, she whispered. That's the worst part. Dr. Kerr sat with her afterward, quietly. You were never to blame, Nora. You were just a child. Nora shook her head. Then why did they keep choosing me? March 12, 2024. Evidence confirmed. The warehouse haul included 386 digital files, 61 VHS originals, handwritten buyer logs with coded symbols, transaction records for over $400,000 in video donations, audio clips used to train victims, including obedience music and daily compliance tracks. On one file folder was a note. Nora, best compliance subject to date. Repeat her routines for others. She hadn't just been a victim. She'd been the template. Now she was the key to dismantling the entire network. But the man who built it, the one who took her in 1994, was still out there. March 13th to 16th, 2024. Location, nationwide. The man known as Kevin Willis had left no digital footprint. No bank accounts, no tax returns, no valid driver's license. Every ID linked to him, Kevin Nash, Darren Lewis, Harold Witt, Nathan Brisk, traced back to stolen or deceased individuals from small towns across the Midwest. Every alias had one thing in common. It was tied to a school, a district, or a childhood name. He had lived in the gaps between records, carefully, deliberately. He didn't exist on paper, but he existed on tape. March 13th. Forensic Timeline agent Lucas Dyer and Sheriff Mendez worked alongside FBI analysts to reconstruct the timeline using footage from the Joliet warehouse and tapes recovered in Stillwater, Des Moines, and Colorado. 1994, Nora. Pink Room begins. Nora becomes primary subject. 1995, Lisa. First signs of scripting obedience through repetition. 2006, Wendy. Video reveals changing production methods, scripted lesson sequences. 2009, Brianna. Use of fake educational settings. A chalkboard in the background reads, Today's lesson, be quiet. 2011, Lila. Control peaks. Emotional blunting observed. Longer clips. 2017, unknown. Unfinished tape labeled F22, replacement trial. Girl unidentified. Footage cuts mid-sentence. By 2017, he had fine-tuned a system of recruitment, obedience, and disposal. But something disrupted him after that. He vanished. March 14th. Nora remembers something new. In a quiet session with Dr. Kerr, Nora spoke slowly, eyes unfocused. He didn't always look the same. What do you mean? He had faces. He used wigs, facial hair, even voices. Sometimes he'd call himself Mr. Harlan, sometimes Coach. Once he made me call him Principal Jack. Kerr wrote furiously. Did he ever say his real name? Nora hesitated. Only once, when he thought I was asleep. She leaned forward, whispering, I heard him say, Don't forget who you were, Eldred. Eldred. A rare, outdated name. The kind you don't hear often anymore. Dyer ran it through the new database of persons of interest and dormant aliases. One result pinged. Eldred K. Halverson. Born 1963. Deceased on paper, Montana, March 15th. Field investigation. Montana, a graveyard in Carbon County. A small headstone, Eldred Halverson, 1963 to 1965, died at 2 years old. Wrong age, but when they pulled the birth certificate, it had been altered in 1993. Another trail led them to a shuttered elementary school in Park County, Montana. Closed in 1992. One staff photo from 1991 included a man labeled E. Halverson, custodian. The man in the photo matched Kevin Willis. It was him. No beard, younger, wearing janitor blues, smiling, watching. March 16th. Case realization. He'd been working inside school systems, custodial jobs, substitute driver lists, maintenance rosters, all in rural districts where oversight was minimal, where background checks were handwritten or forged, where kids remembered a friendly face who brought them candy, who knew their teacher's name. And the bus from 1994? It wasn't stolen. It was decommissioned by the district 2 months earlier, but never picked up from the yard. He drove it because no one was looking. He was the perfect ghost. Later that night, Nora's room. She sat up in bed. "I had a dream." "What was it?" Dr. Kerr asked. "I saw him again, older, watching me through a fence, but he wasn't angry." "What was he?" "Smiling, like he knew I still belonged to him." She shivered. "But he's wrong." Final field report excerpt. Subject Kevin Willis. True identity believed to be Eldred Halverson. Operated a decades-long, multi-state captivity and conditioning network using educational pretext and psychological compliance scripting. Currently at large. Believed to be aged 60+, capable of disguise, mobility, and continued targeting. His victims were isolated, reprogrammed, and filmed. Nora Field was not the only one. But she may be the last one we ever recover alive. One file remained unopened. It arrived anonymously, sent to the FBI's digital intake line at 2:43 a.m. March 17th. Subject: Nora wasn't yours to save. Attached: a still frame from a new video. Nora asleep in the Stillwater room. Timestamp: August 4th, 2022. He had returned. He had watched her sleep, again, just 2 years ago. He was still close, still active, still hunting. March 17th to 20th, 2024. Location: Pine Hollow, Wisconsin, undisclosed location. Nora stared at the photo. It was grainy, time-stamped, and unmistakable. She was asleep, on the cot in Stillwater, wrapped in the pink blanket. Her face slack with exhaustion, her hair matted at the crown. The image hadn't come from any of the seized tapes. It was new, dated August 4th, 2022. She'd been 15, still in captivity. The lighting matched the silo chamber, but the angle was wrong. Higher, tilted, taken from the vent near the ceiling. Someone had watched her 2 years ago, and that meant one thing. He had come back. March 17th. Emergency relocation. The FBI moved Nora and Dana Field to a secure safe house outside Madison. The farmhouse in Pine Hollow was too exposed, too familiar. Nora didn't speak for hours during the transfer, not until they passed a burned-out billboard on the highway that once advertised Bryan County School bus safety. She pointed at it, quietly. That's where he parked. The first night. You remember? I remember everything. March 18th. Psychological threat assessment. Dr. Kerr updated Nora's trauma risk level to persistent re-triggering. Despite physical safety, she suffered. Hallucinations, auditory echoes of past commands, chronic hypervigilance, identity confusion. And worst of all, she no longer trusted her own freedom. If he took me once, she said, what's stopping him from doing it again? March 19th. Investigation. Narrows. The anonymous email that delivered the photo pinged from a server farm in Spokane, Washington. The address was scrubbed, but metadata revealed a fingerprint, a sequence of encryption that matched other Blossom tapes. Whoever sent it had access to the same devices, or was the original creator. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. He still sees her as his. Nora's journal. Entry number 1. They think I'm healing, but it's not healing if the wound is still open. It's just bleeding slower. I dreamt of the pink light again. Not the room, just the glow. I was inside it like a fog. I couldn't tell what was real. Maybe that's the point. He said I was his forever. And sometimes I still believe him. March 20th. Breakthrough. An IT forensics agent named Lou Vargas cracked a locked drive from the Joliet warehouse. Inside, a folder titled Nora/Final, one video file. Ready version 3 August 2022.move. The footage was silent. 5 minutes. Static camera. Nora, older, thinner, sits facing the lens. She's wearing a floral-patterned sundress. Her feet are bare. She smiles, then slowly, deliberately, recites a familiar phrase. I'm safe. The world is sick. I'm not broken. I belong here. But as she finishes the last line, her eyes flick left, and for half a second, she flinches. Behind the lens, something moved. Someone was standing there. The video ends with the faintest noise. A door sliding shut. That same night, Nora's room, safe house. She watched the footage herself. Twice. The second time, she stopped it right before her flinch. I remember that day, she whispered. What happened after? Asked Dr. Kerr. Nothing. That was the last time I saw him. He left? Nora nodded. He said I passed, that I didn't need more filming. A pause. He kissed my forehead. Then he said, "You're done." She blinked hard. But I wasn't. Final assessment. Nora Field had survived 30 years of psychological captivity. She'd outlived 6 other girls, escaped the system, reclaimed her name. But her abuser had never been caught. And somewhere out there, he still watched, perhaps grooming another girl, perhaps preparing another tape, or perhaps watching Nora again, through another lens, waiting for her to forget the rules. That night, before sleep, Nora whispered to herself in the dark, if he finds me again, he won't find the same girl. July 3rd, 2024. Location, Pine Hollow, Wisconsin, undisclosed. They held the vigil on the 30-year anniversary. Not a memorial, a homecoming. A tent was pitched near Pine Hollow Elementary, where Nora Field had once waited in her jacket and snow boots for a bus that never should have come. People brought candles, flowers, signs. Dana stood beside her daughter, fingers interlaced, as the local news broadcast quietly from the edge of the crowd. There were no speeches, just silence. And then, a single photo of Nora, age 11, taken the day before she vanished, projected on a sheet strung between 2 flagpoles. Nora stood under it. This time, she didn't flinch. The investigation remains open. The FBI confirmed over 17 tapes tied to the Blossom conditioning program, but the full number of victims is likely much higher. The man believed to be Kevin Willis, real name potentially Eldred Halverson, remains at large. He is now considered one of the most elusive and dangerous serial predators in American history. Interpol and Homeland Security are involved. But the trail is faint. Nora lives in protective relocation now. She takes art therapy courses. She draws every day. Sometimes she sketches the room, the pink glow, the narrow bed. Other times she sketches other girls, not as victims, as they should have been. Wendy smiling in a library. Lisa swinging in a backyard. Lila holding a balloon in the middle of a state fair. She draws them as free. From Nora's journal, July 3rd, 2024. There are days I forget he's real, but then I see a girl on a corner, waiting alone, and I remember. Not everything that looks like a bus is a bus, and not everyone driving it is trying to take you home. Final message from Nora to the public. If someone promises you safety but takes your name, your words, your light, that isn't safety. That's a cage. I didn't get on the wrong bus. He drove the wrong one on purpose. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm the reason it ends.